For many people, self-harm or suicidal thoughts become a way of coping with overwhelming emotions. These behaviors can feel like the only escape from intense emotional pain, offering a sense of control or temporary relief. However, they also come with deep shame, isolation, and often leave individuals feeling even more trapped and misunderstood. If you or someone you know engages in self-harming behaviors or experiences recurring thoughts of wanting to end their life, it's important to recognize that these are serious signs of emotional distress. While the pain may feel unbearable, it's crucial to understand that healing is possible and there are healthier ways to cope with emotional turmoil. In this video, we'll explore the reasons behind self-harm and suicidal thoughts, how they manifest, and what steps can be taken to seek help and find healing. What is self-harm and why do people engage in it? Self-harm, also known as non-suicidal self-injury, NSSI, refers to deliberately hurting oneself as a way to cope with emotional pain. Common methods include cutting, burning, hitting, or other forms of self-injury. People who self-harm often describe it as a way to express emotions they can't put into words or to feel a sense of control when everything else feels overwhelming. Others may use it as a way to punish themselves, release pent-up emotions, or distract from intense emotional pain. While self-harm is not always linked to suicidal intent, it is a sign of significant emotional distress, and for some, it may escalate into suicidal thoughts or behaviors. Common signs of self-harm and suicidal thoughts. Here are 5 common signs of self-harm and suicidal thoughts, along with real-life scenarios to illustrate how these feelings can manifest in everyday life. 1. Engaging in behaviors like cutting, burning, or hitting yourself to cope with emotional pain. People who self-harm often use physical pain as a way to cope with overwhelming emotions. The physical injury can feel like a release or a way to externalize internal pain that feels too difficult to bear. 1. The hidden cuts. You've had a tough week, arguments at home, stress at work, and feeling overwhelmed by everything. The emotional pain feels unbearable, but instead of talking to someone about it, you go into the bathroom, lock the door, and take out a sharp object. As you make small cuts on your skin, you feel a strange sense of relief. The physical pain gives you something to focus on, something tangible. You hide the cuts under long sleeves and pretend everything is fine, but deep down, you know this isn't a healthy way to cope. Engaging in self-harm is often a way to manage emotions that feel too intense or out of control. While it may provide temporary relief, it ultimately deepens feelings of shame, isolation, and distress. 2. Frequently thinking about death or wishing you didn't exist. People struggling with suicidal thoughts may find themselves frequently thinking about death, not necessarily because they want to die, but because they want the pain to end. These thoughts can be passive, such as wishing they didn't exist, or more active, involving thoughts of ending their life. 2. The wish to disappear. You've been feeling numb for weeks, like you're just going through the motions of life. You're not actively thinking about harming yourself, but you keep wishing you could just disappear. Every time something goes wrong, whether it's a minor setback at work or a fight with a friend, you find yourself thinking, I wish I wasn't here, or everything would be easier if I just didn't exist. These thoughts are persistent, and though you don't have a plan, the idea of not existing feels like the only way to escape the pain. This kind of thinking can be a warning sign of deeper emotional distress. Even if the thoughts are passive, they indicate a need for support and intervention to address the underlying pain. 3. Having a plan or thinking about how you would end your life. When suicidal thoughts progress to the point of planning, it's a sign that the person is in significant emotional crisis. This might involve thinking about specific methods, researching ways to end their life, or making preparations for it. 3. The detailed plan. You've been struggling with depression for a long time, and the feelings of hopelessness have become overwhelming. You start thinking about ways to end your life, not just vague thoughts, but detailed plans. You think about where you would do it, what method you would use, and whether you would leave a note. You start preparing, hiding certain items in your room, or making lists. You haven't acted on the plan, but just having it in place makes you feel like you have a way out if things get worse. Having a plan for suicide is a critical sign that someone needs immediate help. If you or someone you know is in this situation, it's essential to reach out for professional support right away. 4. Feeling like self-harm is the only way to express or relieve your emotions. For many people who self-harm, it feels like the only way to express emotions they can't verbalize or control. The act of harming themselves becomes a way to release the intensity of their feelings. 4. The emotional release. You've been feeling overwhelmed by emotions you can't seem to control. Anger, sadness, and frustration build up inside, but you don't know how to talk about it or let it out. You start hitting yourself, punching walls, or hurting your body in some way. It's not because you want to die, it's because it's the only thing that makes the emotions bearable for a moment. Afterward, you feel guilty and ashamed, but at least the emotional pain feels more manageable. For those who self-harm, it's often a way to cope with feelings that feel too big to express. However, it's important to remember that there are healthier ways to manage emotions, and help is available. 5. Engaging in risky behaviors, like substance abuse, as a form of self-punishment. Some people engage in risky or self-destructive behaviors, such as substance abuse, reckless driving, or dangerous situations, as a form of self-punishment. These behaviors are often driven by feelings of worthlessness or a desire to numb emotional pain. 5. The self-destructive spiral. You've been feeling increasingly disconnected from everything: work, relationships, even yourself. To cope, you've started drinking more heavily, using substances, or putting yourself in risky situations, like driving recklessly or hanging out with people who don't have your best interests at heart. Deep down, you know these behaviors are dangerous, but a part of you feels like you deserve the consequences. You're punishing yourself for feeling like a failure or for not living up to expectations. Engaging in risky behaviors as a form of self-punishment can be a sign of deeper emotional pain. These behaviors often mask feelings of worthlessness or guilt and are a cry for help. Seeking help. You don't have to cope alone. If you or someone you know is struggling with self-harm or suicidal thoughts, it's important to know that help is available. While it may feel like there's no way out of the pain, there are healthier ways to cope, and healing is possible. 1. Reach out to a professional therapist. Counselors and doctors are trained to help people in emotional crisis. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, are especially effective for managing self-harm and suicidal thoughts, as they teach coping skills and strategies for regulating emotions. 2. Talk to someone you trust. It can be difficult to open up, but talking to someone you trust, whether it's a friend, family member, or counselor, can provide relief. Sharing your feelings with someone else can help you feel less isolated and more supported. 3. Practice grounding techniques. When you feel the urge to self-harm, try grounding techniques to bring yourself back to the present moment. This might include holding an ice cube, focusing on your breathing, or engaging your senses by describing objects around you. 4. Seek crisis support. If you are in immediate danger or having suicidal thoughts, seek help from a crisis hotline or go to the nearest emergency room. Crisis hotlines, such as the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 988 in the U.S., are available 24/7 to provide support and connect you with resources. There is hope beyond the pain. Self-harm and suicidal thoughts are signs of deep emotional pain, but they don't have to define your life. While it may feel like there's no way out, healing is possible with the right support and resources. You are not alone, and there are people who want to help you find healthier ways to cope. Reach out, take the first step toward healing, and know that there is hope beyond the pain.